The chamber was massive, built to hold beings from 100 different worlds. Captain Hyunwoo stood in the center, alone on a platform that floated above the floor. All around him, 7 different alien species sat in judgment. Their eyes, or whatever they used to see, were fixed on him. The air smelled strange, filtered through systems designed to keep everyone alive in the same room. Above his head, holographic screens flickered to life. They showed battles. Human ships moving in patterns that made the aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. Explosions, ambushes, quick strikes that came from nowhere. The chief prosecutor rose from his seat. He was an architect, a being made of living crystal that reflected light in sharp angles. When he spoke, his voice rang like glass chimes. "Captain Hyunwoo of Earth," the architect said, "you stand accused of 17 violations of the Galactic Combat Accords. Your species has shown complete disregard for the laws of honorable warfare." Hyunwoo said nothing. He kept his face blank, his hands clasped behind his back. He had learned early that aliens read human expressions poorly. Better to give them nothing. The architect gestured to the screens. "Observe. Battle of Proxima Station. Human forces promised negotiation, then attacked during the peace talks. This is treachery." Another screen lit up. Battle of the Kuiper Gates. Human ships fled from combat, leading our forces into a trap. This is cowardice disguised as tactics. A third screen. Battle of New Terra. Humans used electronic warfare to blind our sensors and jam our communications. They struck from positions we could not detect. They refused to announce their attack vectors. They gave us no chance to prepare our defenses properly. The architect turned to face Hyunwoo directly. 17 violations. Each one a stain on the honor of warfare. Each one proof that humanity does not deserve a place in civilized galactic society. From her seat in the witness gallery, Lieutenant Nari watched the proceedings. Her jaw was tight, but she kept her composure. She had seen these same battle recordings dozens of times. Each time, the aliens acted like humanity had committed some terrible crime. They did not understand. They refused to understand. The architect continued his presentation. He showed charts and graphs, all proving that human tactics violated the ancient rules of war. He called witnesses from 4 different species, each one describing with disgust how humans fought. A warrior from the Flame caste spoke of how humans refused to meet them in open battle. "They hide," he said, his voice burning with anger. "They strike and vanish. They do not face us with honor." A strategist from the Void Collective described human deception. "They make us see things that are not there. They plant false information. They turn our own systems against us. War should be honest, a test of strength and will. Humans make it a game of lies." On and on it went. For 3 hours, the tribunal heard testimony about humanity's crimes. The worst accusation came last. The architect pulled up a document, ancient and glowing with importance. The Galactic Combat Accords, written 4,000 years ago by the founding species of this council. Every civilization that joins our union agrees to follow these rules. They exist to prevent war from becoming barbaric. They ensure that conflicts are fought with honor, that the strongest and most noble forces win, that warfare tests the true quality of a species. The architect pointed at Hyunwoo. "Humanity signed these accords 30 years ago when you joined the galactic community. You promised to follow our ways. Instead, you have violated them at every opportunity. You use tactics that our ancestors banned because they are dishonorable, cowardly, and beneath civilized beings." Finally, the architect presented his demands. "The Council requires Earth to surrender all military command codes. You will allow galactic peacekeepers to oversee your armed forces. You will retrain your soldiers in proper combat doctrine. If you refuse, Earth will be expelled from the Galactic Union. Your ships will be barred from our space. And if necessary, a coalition force will be sent to your world to restore order. The chamber fell silent. The weight of the threat hung in the air. Every species in the gallery watched to see how the human would respond. Hien-Wu looked up at the architect. Then, for the first time since the trial began, he spoke. I request a 48-hour recess. The architect's crystalline form seemed to sharpen. A recess? You do not wish to defend yourself? I will defend humanity, Hien-Wu said calmly. But I need time to prepare my response properly. 48 hours. That is all I ask. The 7 council members conferred among themselves in languages Hien-Wu could not understand. Finally, the head arbiter, a being so old its species name had been forgotten, nodded slowly. Your request is granted. We will reconvene in 2 days. But know this, human. The evidence against your species is overwhelming. Unless you can provide an extraordinary defense, the judgment is already clear. The platform lowered Hien-Wu back to the floor. Security escorts, robots programmed to handle any species, waited to guide him back to his ship. The Taeguchi was still held in orbital impound, its weapons locked down, its crew confined to their quarters. As Hien-Wu walked through the chamber, he passed close to the witness gallery. His eyes met Nari's for just a moment. And there, so slight that only someone who knew him well would notice, he smiled. It was not a smile of surrender. It was not a smile of nervousness. It was the smile of someone who had a plan. Nari understood immediately. She had served under Hien-Wu for 8 years. She knew that look. Humanity was not defeated. Not yet. Not ever. The captain left the chamber without another word. The aliens returned to their discussions, confident in their righteousness. They had the law on their side. They had tradition. They had 4,000 years of civilized warfare backing their position. What they did not have was an understanding of what it meant to be human. They did not know that humans had spent their entire history fighting wars against impossible odds. They did not know that humanity's greatest skill was not following rules, but surviving despite them. In 2 days, Captain Hien-Wu would return to this chamber, and he would show the galaxy something they had never seen before. He would show them why humanity did not break the rules of war. He would show them why humanity made their own. The conference room aboard the Taeguchi was small and secure. No signals could get in or out. The walls were plain metal, designed for function rather than comfort. Captain Hien-Wu sat at the head of the table. His senior staff gathered around him. Lieutenant Nari pulled up the tribunal's accusations on the main screen. Next to her sat Engineer Tae-Young, a man who could fix anything mechanical and break anything electronic. Across from them, Marine Commander Somin leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. She looked ready for a fight, even here in a meeting room. At the far end, Communications Officer Do-Yoon tapped away at his tablet, organizing files and data. 17 violations, Nari said, highlighting each one. They claim we ambushed forces during peace negotiations. They say we used deception and trickery. They accuse us of cowardice for refusing to fight on their terms. Somin snorted. They accuse us of winning. Hien-Wu nodded slowly. That is exactly right. Let me show you something. He gestured to Do-Yoon, who brought up a new file. The screen filled with text in dozens of languages. These are the Galactic Combat Accords, the rules every species agrees to follow. Tae-Young read aloud from the screen. Article 4. All military forces must announce their attack vectors at least 1 standard hour before engagement. Article 7. Electronic warfare and sensor jamming are prohibited as they prevent honorable combat. Article 12. Deception and misdirection are forbidden. All forces must fight openly and honestly. It goes on like that for pages, Hyunwoo said. Every rule designed to make war predictable, fair, honorable, and suicidal, Nari added quietly. Hyunwoo brought up another file. This one was older, from Earth's archives. 30 years ago, humanity made first contact with the galactic community. We were excited. Finally, we were not alone in the universe. We signed the accords without really understanding what they meant. The screen changed to show battle reports. Human ships fighting against alien forces. The casualty numbers made everyone in the room wince. Our first war was against a species called the Burning Legion, a territorial dispute over a mining colony. We followed the accords exactly. We announced our attacks. We fought in open space. We met them head-on, strength against strength. Do-Yun pulled up the final statistics. We lost 80% of our fleet. For every enemy ship we destroyed, we lost 10 of our own. The war lasted 3 months. We had to surrender. The aliens were not stronger than us, Hyunwoo said. They were not better equipped, but they knew we would follow the rules. They knew exactly where we would attack and how we would do it. We might as well have sent them our battle plans directly. Somin slammed her hand on the table. So we learned. We adapted. Tell them about Kepler 442, Hyunwoo said. Somin grinned, though there was no humor in it. My first real command. We were defending a colony world against raiders. They had us outnumbered 3-1. If we followed the accords, we would have announced our position, met them in open ground, and died honorably. She pulled up tactical maps. Instead, we pretended to retreat, made it look like we were running scared. They chased us into a canyon, thinking they had won. Then my Marines hit them from both sides. We had rigged the canyon walls with charges. Half their force was buried before they knew what happened. The tribunal calls this treachery, Nari said. I call it survival, Somin replied. We won that battle. Saved 10,000 colonists. Lost only 30 Marines. If we had fought their way, we would all be dead. Taeyang spoke up next. They accuse us of electronic warfare, as if using technology to our advantage is somehow wrong. He brought up schematics of various systems. During the Titan offensive, enemy forces had us surrounded. They were communicating on 17 different frequencies, coordinating their attack perfectly. So I jammed all of them. The enemy could not talk to each other, Do-Yun explained. Their perfect coordination fell apart. They started firing at each other because they could not identify friend from enemy. We broke through their lines and escaped. The accords say this is dishonorable, Taeyang said. I say it is engineering. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars hung in the black of space. When we first joined the galaxy, we thought we had to become like them. We tried to fight with honor and tradition. But humans did not evolve that way. He turned back to his crew. Every species in the Galactic Union developed warfare in similar ways. They had honor codes. They had rules. When they met each other in space, their ways of fighting were compatible. They could all agree on what was fair. But Earth was different, Nari said. Earth was hell, Hyunwoo replied. For millions of years, life on our planet fought for survival in the cruelest ways. No honor, no rules, only adaptation. Humans learned to use tools, to set traps, to hunt in groups. We learned deception. We learned to hide and strike. We learned that survival matters more than pride. He brought up images from human history. Ancient battles, medieval warfare, modern combat. Sun Tzu wrote about deception 2,000 years ago. All warfare is based on deception. Clausewitz taught us that war is politics by other means. Our entire military history is built on one principle. Win the war, protect your people, End the conflict as fast as possible. The aliens think war is a sport, Soman said with disgust. They think it should be fair. War is never fair, Hyunwoo said. It is death and destruction. If you must fight, you fight to win. You use every advantage. You strike where the enemy is weak. You do what they do not expect. Do-Yoon looked worried. But how do we make the tribunal understand this? They have 4,000 years of tradition. They truly believe their way is right. We show them, Hyunwoo said. We prove that human tactics are not just effective, they are necessary. We demonstrate what real warfare looks like. Nari leaned forward. What do you have in mind? The captain smiled. It was the same smile he had given her in the tribunal chamber. We challenge them to a war game. Human forces against their best strategists. Equal numbers, equal resources. We show them exactly why we fight the way we do. Tae-young raised an eyebrow. You think they will agree? They are arrogant, Hyunwoo said. They believe their way is superior. They will want to prove us wrong in front of the entire galaxy. We give them that chance. And then we crush them, Soman said with satisfaction. No, Hyunwoo corrected. We teach them. We show them what happens when you follow rules that your enemy does not care about. We show them why humanity wrote our own doctrine. The crew looked at each other. Slowly, understanding spread across their faces. This was not just about defending humanity in a courtroom. This was about changing how the galaxy thought about war itself. Get some rest, Hyunwoo ordered. In 2 days, we return to the tribunal, and we show them what it means to fight like humans. The tribunal chamber buzzed with activity. Beings from across the galaxy had gathered to watch the proceedings. Word had spread that the human captain had something to present. Many came expecting entertainment, a final desperate attempt before humanity's inevitable punishment. Captain Hyunwoo stood once again on the floating platform. This time, he did not wait to be addressed. He spoke first. Members of the tribunal, I do not wish to argue with words. Words are too easy to dismiss. Instead, I propose a demonstration. The architect prosecutor tilted his crystalline head. What kind of demonstration? A wargame simulation. Your finest military strategists against human forces. Equal numbers, equal resources, standard victory conditions. The simulation will be broadcast live across the galactic network. The chamber erupted in discussion. The 7 council members leaned toward each other, debating rapidly. Finally, the ancient head arbiter raised one appendage for silence. You wish to prove your tactics are superior? I wish to prove they are different, Hyunwoo said carefully. And necessary. The flame-cast representative stood. He was a warrior, and the idea of a challenge appealed to him. We accept. We will show the galaxy that proper military doctrine defeats your chaotic methods. The council voted quickly. 6 in favor, 1 abstaining. The demonstration was approved. Within an hour, the combat arena was prepared. It was a massive holographic simulation system, capable of modeling entire fleet battles with perfect accuracy. The arena itself was a separate chamber, with stadium seating for thousands of observers. Screens everywhere would show the battle from every angle. The Galactic Coalition selected their commanders. A strategist from the Void Collective, known for his brilliant tactical mind. A warrior from the Flame Caste, veteran of 100 battles. 2 others from species renowned for their military prowess. They were given command of a fleet, infantry forces, and defensive positions. Their objective was simple: destroy the human base or eliminate all human forces. Lieutenant Nari would command the human side. She took her position at the tactical console, her fingers already moving across the controls. Around her, Tae-young, Soman, and Do-Yun stood ready to assist. The rules were explained to the audience. Both sides had equal starting resources. The map was a standard combat zone, with asteroids, nebula clouds, and a central planet. The galactic forces started on one side, humans on the other. A countdown began. 10 seconds. The alien commanders reviewed their forces and began organizing their fleet into traditional formation. They sent scouts ahead, properly announced their attack vector, and prepared to advance according to standard doctrine. 5 seconds. Nari's fingers flew across her console. She was already sending orders, already moving pieces into place. 0. The simulation began. The galactic fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Their ships created a wall of firepower, advancing steadily toward the human base. Their scouts reported that the human forces were not in the expected defensive positions. Strange. Where are they? The Void Collective strategist asked. Probably hiding. The flame-cast warrior said with contempt, "We will flush them out." The coalition forces continued their advance. They reached the halfway point. Still no sign of human ships. The commanders grew confused. Were the humans surrendering? Then the first anomaly appeared. Sensors detected a massive human fleet approaching from the far side of the map. Hundreds of ships, far more than should have been possible with the starting resources. Impossible, the Void strategist said. They cannot have that many ships. But the sensors said otherwise. The coalition fleet turned to face this new threat, reorganizing their formation to meet the incoming assault. Meanwhile, Taeyong smiled at his console. The massive fleet was actually 3 small ships broadcasting false sensor data. The aliens were chasing ghosts. The coalition sent half their forces to intercept the Phantom fleet. The other half continued toward the human base, certain they would find it UNDEFENDED. That was when Do-Yoon struck. He had spent the first 10 minutes of the simulation quietly infiltrating the enemy communications network, not with jamming, which would be obvious. Instead, he sent carefully crafted messages that looked like they came from the coalition's own commanders. Redirect to Sector 7. Enemy forces detected. All ships, new orders. Defensive positions required at the following coordinates. Warning. Ambush suspected at Rally Point Delta. The coalition fleet began receiving dozens of contradictory orders. Commanders tried to verify, but Do-Yoon's messages were perfectly formatted. Using proper authentication codes that he had stolen from their own network, the organized formation began to fall apart. Ships moved in different directions. Some stopped to wait for clarification. Others pushed forward, thinking the confusing orders were enemy interference. The Void strategist realized what was happening. They have compromised our communications. All ships, disregard previous orders. Follow my direct commands only. But by then, it was too late. The coalition fleet was scattered across the battlefield. No longer a unified force. That was when Soman launched the real attack. 3 small teams of Marines, hidden inside what appeared to be simple cargo vessels, had been drifting through the battlefield since the simulation started. The coalition forces had dismissed them as non-threats, focusing on the Phantom fleet and the communication chaos. Now those cargo vessels dropped their disguises. They were assault ships, loaded with breaching equipment. They struck directly at the enemy command vessel, the ship where the 4 galactic commanders were coordinating their forces. The attack was brutal and swift. Summons Marines cut through the outer hull, penetrated the bridge, and eliminated the command structure. Without leadership, the scattered coalition fleet became easy prey. Nari finally revealed the actual human combat fleet, not scattered across the map, not hiding in fear. They had been positioned in 3 strategic locations, waiting patiently for the enemy to divide their forces. Now they struck simultaneously at 3 separated groups of coalition ships. The battle was over in 47 minutes. The coalition forces never had a chance to fight a proper engagement. They had been deceived, divided, and destroyed without ever facing the enemy on their terms. The simulation ended. The arena fell silent dot in the observation gallery. Thousands of aliens stared at the screens in shock. The human forces had not fought a single honorable battle. They had used deception, false information, infiltration, and coordinated strikes. And they had won completely. The architect prosecutor stood slowly. His crystalline form seemed to vibrate with anger. This is exactly what we accused you of. This is not warfare. This is treachery. Hyunwoo stepped forward. This is survival. You gave us equal forces, equal resources. The only difference was our approach. Your commanders followed the accords. They announced their movements. They organized their forces properly. They did everything by the rules. He gestured to the screens, showing the battle's end. And they lost. In less than an hour. If this had been a real battle, thousands of your soldiers would be dead. Your fleet would be destroyed. Your base captured. The flame-cast warrior slammed his appendage down. Because you cheated. No, Nari said, speaking up for the first time. Because you followed rules that guaranteed your defeat. You told us where you were going. You moved in predictable patterns. You trusted your communications without verifying them. You dismissed threats that seemed small. Every mistake you made was because you expected us to fight the way you wanted us to fight. Soman added, in a real war, the enemy does not care about your rules. They care about winning. If you fight honorably against an enemy who fights to survive, you will die honorably. The tribunal chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded the simulation be run again. Others insisted the demonstration proved nothing. A few sat in silence, clearly thinking hard about what they had witnessed. Hyun-woo waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke in a voice that carried across the entire chamber. You accused Earth of breaking the rules of war. You were right. We did break them. Now let me tell you why. The chamber slowly quieted. Every being present watched Captain Hyunwoo, waiting to hear how he would justify what they had just witnessed. The simulation results still glowed on the screens around them, a reminder of the coalition's total defeat. Hyunwoo looked at each of the 7 council members in turn. Then he asked a simple question. What is the purpose of war? The architect prosecutor responded immediately. To test strength. To determine which civilization is superior. The flame-cast warrior added, war proves honor. It separates the brave from the coward, the strong from the weak. A representative from the Harmony Collective spoke in musical tones. War is unfortunate but necessary. When it occurs, it must be conducted with dignity and respect for life. Others offered similar answers. War is ritual. War as honor. War as a test of cultural and military strength, conducted according to ancient traditions that gave everyone a fair chance. Hyunwoo listened to each response with respect. Then he gave humanity's answer. The purpose of war is to win, to protect your people, to end the conflict as quickly as possible with the minimum casualties on both sides. The architect's crystalline form flashed. That is a brutal philosophy. It is an honest one, Hyunwoo replied. You speak of honor and testing strength. Those are noble ideas. But they forget something important. War is not a game. It is not a sport. Real people die. Real families lose their loved ones. Real worlds burn. He gestured to Soman. The Marine commander stood and pulled up a file. Numbers and names filled the screens. These are casualty reports from humanity's first 3 years in the galactic community. When we followed the combat accords exactly as written, our losses were catastrophic. Battle of Titan Station. 8,200 humans dead, 400 enemy casualties. Battle of the Frontier Worlds. 12,000 humans dead, 900 enemy casualties. Battle after battle, we lost 10 soldiers for every one the enemy lost. The numbers were stark and undeniable. The chamber grew uncomfortable. Soman continued. Then we changed our approach. We studied our own military history. We remembered how humans have always fought when survival was at stake. We adopted tactics that your accords prohibit. New numbers appeared. Battle of Kepler 442. 30 human casualties. 3,000 enemy casualties. Battle of the Titan Offensive. 0 human casualties. Enemy force eliminated. Battle of New Terra. 800 human casualties. Enemy fleet destroyed. War ended in 2 weeks instead of 2 years. She looked directly at the tribunal. Our casualty ratio reversed. Instead of losing 10 soldiers for every enemy killed, we lost 1 for every 10 enemies. And because our wars ended quickly, total deaths on both sides dropped dramatically. Taeyang stood next. You accuse us of using electronic warfare. You say it is dishonorable to blind enemy sensors or jam their communications. But let me ask you something. If a battle lasts 6 months because both sides can coordinate perfectly, how many people die? If I can end that battle in 6 days by disrupting enemy coordination, is that not more merciful? He brought up simulations showing prolonged battles versus quick strikes. Your rules make wars last longer. They create more suffering, more death, more destruction. You call it honor. I call it waste. Dao Yun added his own evidence. I have intercepted communications from 17 different species over the past year. Would you like to know what they say in private? He displayed messages on the screen, translated for all to read. Military analysts admitting that human tactics were effective. Generals quietly studying human battle reports. Politicians privately discussing whether their own species should adopt similar methods. Even the Void Collective, whose strategist had just been defeated in simulation, had internal reports praising human efficiency. You condemn us in public, Doyon said, but in private, you recognize the truth. The combat accords are outdated. They preserve tradition at the cost of lives. Hyunwoo stepped forward again. Let me tell you why humanity fights the way we do. Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds where life was relatively gentle. Your predators were honorable. Your prey fought fairly. When you developed civilization, you created rules for warfare that reflected your nature. He pulled up images of Earth, jungles, deserts, oceans. Earth was not gentle. Life on our world was violent from the beginning. Every creature fought for survival without mercy. Predators used ambush and stealth. Prey used deception and camouflage. There was no honor in nature, only survival. Images of human history appeared. Ancient humans hunting, using tools, working in groups. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We could not outrun our prey. We could not overpower it with strength. So we learned to track it for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to use weapons. We learned to work together. We learned to be smarter than the creatures we hunted. More images. Human warfare through the ages. When we fought each other, we used the same skills. We set traps. We used terrain to our advantage. We attacked at night or in bad weather. We did whatever worked. Not because we were evil, but because we wanted to survive. The architect interrupted. So you admit your species is naturally treacherous? No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We are naturally adaptive. There is a difference. When you fight an enemy who shares your values, your rules work perfectly. But what happens when you face an enemy who does not care about honor? Who will use any tactic to win? He pointed to the simulation results still displayed on the screens. We just showed you. You lose. And you lose badly. Nari stepped forward. Humanity did not break your combat accords because we are cruel. We broke them because they guaranteed our defeat. When we followed your rules, our soldiers died by the thousands. We had to choose between honor and survival. We chose survival. Would you have us die politely? Soman asked. Should we have followed rules that killed our people just to make you comfortable? The chamber erupted again. Some species argued that tradition was more important than efficiency. Others admitted quietly that the humans had a point. The debate raged for over an hour. Finally, the ancient head arbiter raised an appendage. The chamber fell silent. The human makes a disturbing argument, the arbiter said slowly. But it is an argument we cannot easily dismiss. Let me ask the captain a question. If we were to accept your way of warfare, would that not lead to chaos? If everyone abandoned the accords, would war not become more brutal? Hianwu considered his words carefully. War is already brutal. Your accords do not change that. They only make you feel better about it. You have convinced yourselves that following rules makes the killing honorable. But the dead do not care about honor. Their families do not care about tradition. He looked around the chamber. I am not asking you to become like us. I am asking you to understand why we cannot be like you. Humanity will defend itself. We will use every advantage we have. We will do what is necessary to protect our people. If that makes us uncomfortable to be around, then so be it. But we will not apologize for surviving. The 7 council members looked at each other. For the first time, doubt showed on some of their faces. The architect prosecutor seemed less certain. The flame-cast warrior sat quietly, thinking. This tribunal will recess for 3 days, the head arbiter announced. The council must deliberate on what we have learned here. Captain Hyunwoo, you and your crew will remain in orbit until we reach our verdict. As the chamber began to empty, several younger aliens approached the human delegation. They asked quiet questions about tactics, about human military history, about how to think differently about warfare. Nari and the others answered as best they could. Hyunwoo watched this with satisfaction. They had not won yet, but they had planted seeds of doubt. They had made the galaxy question assumptions that had stood for 4,000 years. Now they could only wait and see if the galaxy was ready to change. 3 days passed slowly aboard the Tae-Jukshi. Captain Hyun-woo and his crew waited, maintaining their readiness but uncertain of what the tribunal would decide. They had shown the galaxy a different way of thinking about war. Whether the galaxy would accept it remained to be seen. During those 3 days, something strange happened. The human delegation began receiving messages. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Some were from military officers of other species, asking questions about tactics. Others were from politicians who wanted to understand human strategic thinking. A few were from ordinary citizens who had watched the demonstration and wanted to know more about Earth. Not all the messages were friendly. Some called humanity dangerous. Others demanded that the tribunal impose harsh restrictions. But many, more than Hyunwoo had expected, expressed something different: curiosity, interest, even grudging respect. On the morning of the 3rd day, the tribunal reconvened. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the galactic network. This was not just about punishing one species anymore. This was about the future of warfare itself. Captain Hyunwoo stood once again on the floating platform. His crew sat in the gallery, ready to support him. Around the chamber, beings from dozens of worlds watched and waited. The architect prosecutor rose first. He had spent 3 days preparing his final arguments. His crystalline form caught the light as he addressed the council. Members of the tribunal, what we have witnessed does not change the fundamental facts. Humanity signed the combat accords. They agreed to follow galactic law. Then they violated that agreement repeatedly. The captain claims this was necessary for survival, but many species have survived while following the rules. Earth simply chose convenience over honor. He pulled up the list of violations once more. 17 separate breaches of the Accords. Each one documented. Each one undeniable. If we allow humanity to ignore our laws, what message does that send? Every species could claim their survival requires breaking the rules. Chaos would follow. The prosecutor's voice rang through the chamber. I recommend that the tribunal impose the full penalties. Earth must surrender military command to galactic oversight. Their forces must be retrained, and they must issue a formal apology to every species harmed by their dishonorable tactics. The chamber buzzed with discussion. The 7 council members sat silently, their faces unreadable. Then the head arbiter spoke. The council has deliberated extensively. We have reviewed the evidence. We have studied the demonstration. We have debated the philosophical questions raised by the human captain. It is time for our decision. The entire chamber fell silent. Even the air seemed to still. Council members, vote on the charges against humanity. All in favor of imposing sanctions? 2 lights appeared. The architect species and 1 other voted to punish Earth. All opposed? 3 lights. 3 species voted against sanctions. Abstaining? 2 lights. The remaining council members chose not to vote either way. The result was clear. The charges were dismissed. There would be no sanctions against humanity. The chamber exploded in noise. Some beings cheered. Others shouted in protest. The architect prosecutor seemed to dim, his crystalline form losing some of its shine. The head arbiter raised an appendage and waited for silence. When the chamber quieted, the ancient being spoke. Let me explain this decision, as it is complex and important. The council acknowledges that humanity violated the combat accords. This is not in dispute. Captain Hyunwoo admitted as much. However, we must also acknowledge something uncomfortable. The arbiter paused, choosing words carefully. The combat accords were written 4,000 years ago by the species who won the wars of that time. They created rules that favored their strengths and their way of fighting. Over time, these rules became tradition. We called them universal laws of warfare. But they were never truly universal. They were simply the rules that the powerful found convenient. This admission shocked many in the audience. The arbiter continued. Humanity exposed a truth we did not wish to face. The accords do not guarantee fairness. They guarantee predictability. They make warfare comfortable for species who fight in traditional ways. But they also prolong conflicts. They increase casualties. They sacrifice efficiency for the sake of tradition. The flame-cast warrior stood. Are you saying humans were right to break the rules? I am saying that humans had valid reasons to question rules that guaranteed their destruction, the arbiter replied. When a law causes more harm than good, when following it means death for your people, what obligation do you have to obey it? The arbiter turned to address the entire chamber. This tribunal cannot condemn Earth for choosing survival over honor. We can be uncomfortable with their methods. We can dislike their approach. But we cannot force them to follow rules that were designed without considering species like them. The architect prosecutor spoke up. Then what happens to the combat accords? If one species can ignore them, others will follow. Precisely, the arbiter said. Which is why the Council is establishing a new initiative. The combat accords will be reviewed and revised. A commission will be formed to update galactic warfare doctrine. And humanity will be invited to participate. This announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Revise the accords? Include humans in the process? It was unprecedented. The galaxy is changing, the arbiter explained. We can resist that change and cling to traditions that no longer serve us. Or we can adapt. We can learn from species who think differently. We can create new rules that account for different approaches to warfare. The ancient being looked directly at Hyunwoo. Earth will not be punished, but Earth will be watched closely. You have shown us a different way of fighting. Now you must show us that you can be trusted with that knowledge. Help us create rules that balance efficiency with ethics, that end wars quickly while protecting the innocent. Hyunwoo bowed respectfully. We accept that responsibility. The tribunal session ended. As beings filed out of the chamber, discussions broke out everywhere. Some were angry, insisting the council had made a mistake. Others were excited about the possibility of updating the ancient accords. A few simply looked thoughtful, processing what they had learned. Back aboard the Tae-Gukshi, the crew gathered in the conference room one last time. Do-yoon pulled up a file on his tablet and whistled. "Captain, you need to see this. Since the verdict was announced an hour ago, we have received 234 messages from various species. 17 are formal requests for military consultations. 23 are from governments wanting to discuss strategic partnerships. The rest are from military academies and research institutions asking for information about human tactical doctrine." Nari laughed. "They spent 3 days accusing us of breaking the rules. Now they want to learn from us." Soman grinned. "Should we teach them about guerrilla tactics? Or make them figure it out on their own?" Taeyong pulled up another screen. "I suggest we start with the basics. Let them read Sun Tzu first. If they can understand the art of war, then maybe they are ready for more advanced concepts." Hyun-woo looked at his crew, these people who had stood with him against the entire galaxy. They had not just defended humanity. They had changed how the galaxy thought about warfare itself. "Respond to the consultation requests," he ordered. "Tell them we are willing to share our knowledge. But make it clear that human military doctrine is not just about tactics. It is a way of thinking. They need to understand the philosophy before they can use the methods." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, young officers from dozens of species were reading about human history for the first time. They were learning that warfare could be more than ritual and tradition. They were discovering that sometimes survival required breaking the rules. "What happens now?" Nari asked quietly. Hyunwoo smiled. It was the same smile he had given her days ago in the tribunal chamber. "Now we teach them. We show them that humans do not just break rules for the sake of chaos. We break rules that no longer make sense. We create new approaches when old ones fail. We adapt, and if they use what we teach them against us?" Soman asked. "Then we adapt again," Hyunwoo said simply. "That is what humans do best. The galaxy wanted us to fight their way. We refused. Now they want to learn our way. Good. Let them learn. Let them adapt their own doctrines. Competition makes everyone stronger." He turned from the window to face his crew. The tribunal did not just clear us of charges. They acknowledged that the old ways are not the only ways. That tradition is not the same as truth. That sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when to make your own rules. Do-young looked up from his tablet. "Captain, the Void Collective is asking if you would be willing to give a lecture at their military academy. They want you to explain how you predicted their moves in the simulation." Taeyang laughed. "They want to know how we beat them so badly." "Tell them yes," Hyunwoo said. "We will teach them everything they want to know. Because that is how humans build alliances. Not through intimidation or force, but through shared knowledge and mutual respect." The crew began making preparations for departure. The Taeguchi would leave orbit soon, no longer an impounded vessel, but a ship welcomed throughout galactic space. They had missions ahead, consultations to attend, knowledge to share. As Hyunwoo prepared to leave the conference room, Nari stopped him. Do you think we really changed anything? Or will the galaxy go back to its old ways once the excitement fades? The captain considered the question. Some will cling to tradition. Others will adapt slowly. But some, especially the younger generations, will embrace new ways of thinking. That is enough. Change does not happen all at once. It spreads like fire, one spark at a time. He looked at the star field visible through the window. We proved something important today. We proved that humans do not have to become like the galaxy. The galaxy can learn to accept us as we are. Different, unconventional, but valuable precisely because we think differently. They accused us of breaking the rules, Ari said. Hyan Wu's smile widened. And we showed them exactly why we made our own.